David and I constantly talk about, what are the rules? What's fair? What's reasonable? And we typically take a pretty centrist view on many of these issues and debates that the world is having right now. The Ukraine was invaded by Russia a long time ago. Carnage, murder, rape. We hear about it every day. Billions of dollars go to Russia. And yes, some parties are not in favor of it. Some parties are. Israel was attacked a year ago, October 7th, and billions of dollars are going there, but there's conditions with these weapons. Israel is receiving support, but there's conditions with this support. But when you hear about the war in Ukraine, we don't really hear about much. We hear that they're blowing each other up, they're crossing borders, crossing enemy lines. It's okay. It's Ukraine. Welcome, everybody. My name's Stuart Brisgell. That's David Solomon. He's my co-host, where we bring you unfiltered, uncensored conversation on a wide range of topics. This podcast is dedicated to giving a platform to express opinions, thoughts, and experiences, and share ideas from every corner of the world. Join us as we dive in this latest news item, pop culture, politics, and so much more. Rants about absurdity of modern life, and deep discussions about what's going on in society. So sit back and relax every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. And I started this off in a little twisted way, as I typically do, to try and make David, put his eyebrow up like Leonard Nimoy used to. The issue is, we're not talking about the Ukraine. We're not talking about Africa. We're not talking about India and Pakistan. We're talking about Israel. When the United States goes and blows up another country, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't hear about the ICC saying that President Bush should be arrested. They talked about it, but they didn't do it. I don't hear about when Obama or Biden or Clinton, you don't hear about the ICC. Now you hear the ICC has an arrest warrant for Prime Minister of Israel. For what reason? Defending its country. For what purpose? To pick on the one small, tiny democracy in a place where there's nothing close to it for thousands of miles. It's amazing how one little tiny country is the focus of the ICC. I'm sorry. There are men, women, and children being raped and murdered in Ukraine. But we can't talk about that. We don't put it out against Vladimir Putin. Where's the ICC arrest warrant for that guy and all of his generals? How about North Korea for bringing troops into this battle? You don't hear about this. And this is, I think, the easy explanation that David's going to try and give us. David, what do you think?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have on this podcast, and we will in a few weeks do our year in review, and we will talk about anti-Semitism clearly as one of the top topics of 2024. And what is incredible is that the anti-Semitism, not just in university campuses, but you could see political movements really showing their true colors. And the United Nations has been guilty for decades of a one-sidedness, one type of attitude that on a regular basis, and if you don't believe me, check UN Watch. This organization is in Geneva and follows every resolution with every country, from China with the Uyghurs and Russia attacking Ukraine and African warlords and what they do. And when you add them all up, Stuart, all the resolutions to all those countries, they still dwarf the number of resolutions brought up against Israel. There is a line in the agenda where Israel alone is a topic at the United Nations. A population of 9 million. A place where Arabs, Jews, Christians live side by side in peace, and has been accused by it as an apartheid state. Far from the truth. Because the United Nations has no interest. Because when you have people like Francesca Albanese, a UN rapporteur, whose posts are so absolutely clearly anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and the UN does nothing, it shows their true colors. Again and again and again. So is it any wonder that when the South Africa brought Israel to the International Criminal Court, of which Israel, by the way, isn't part of, neither is the United States. Neither recognizes the validity of the ICC. The ICC is a kangaroo court because it's obvious that justice is irrelevant. It's political. You know, the Americans like to say that the Supreme Court is political. You have no idea what political is until you go and you look what the ICC does. This International Criminal Court is a joke. It's completely a joke. One of the judges is clearly a criminal, but they're doing nothing about it. That's the ICC. So this week, two things occurred with respect to Israel that was disgusting and vile and shows the anti-Semitic attitude brought forward by the world. One, the Pope decided on his own, without checking, no fact checking, nothing, Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. The Pope, the man who's supposed to be the protector of the Catholic Church, has accused Israel of genocide. Once again, the Church, despite the changes Pope John Paul II made during his tenure as Pope, reverted back to what it is known for, a body of hate and anti-Semitism. Ignoring the plight of Christians in Africa, ignoring the plight of Christians in the Middle East, ignoring the fact that Israel is the only state in the Middle East in which Christians can live in peace and practice in peace, whether you're Arab or non-Arab in the area, he still accuses Israel of a genocide. How nice. And so for the International Criminal Court to proceed then to issue arrest warrants. Now, this is apparently a formality. It's not a judgment, but a formality. Issuing at the same time to a dead Hamas leader, they issued arrest warrants for former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Which means, in theory, that should Benjamin Netanyahu go to Canada, UK, France, Holland, or any other country that is part of the ICC, they'll be immediately arrested. Thankfully, the Biden administration rejected it, but my Canadian administration said they will respect the International Court's decision, as did the UK. These are your allies. These are your so-called friends. These are the people who are supposed to help you. Now, France's Prime Minister has said that while they heard and they are still part of the ICC and respect the ICC, they're not going to arrest Netanyahu. They don't believe in it. Thankfully, France woke up and said, this makes no sense. But they put the cart before the horse, of course, the ICC, to try to further discredit Israel. Where is the accusation? Where is the criminality with Hamas? Almost non-existent. Yeah, there are lines and there are comments about it. But really, this is what you do? You go after a prime minister and a defense minister? You can't even prove genocide in Gaza. You can't. Military experts around the world have said that by every definition, including the United Nations definition of a genocide, Israel's not guilty. Every military expert who's neutral. The ones that have accused Israel have also, and it's clear, shown their hate and disgust to Israel. I don't understand. When the president of Syria, Bashar Assad, kills hundreds of thousands of Syrians, Palestinians, with chemical weapons, Stuart, in a civil war, there's no criminality. Russia wipes it under the table and says, we do nothing here. When the president Recep Erdogan does the same thing to Kurds in Turkey, we put that under the table. We don't do that. The United States went into Afghanistan, Iraq. If you are going to use this definition of genocide, then you're all guilty, and all these presidents and prime ministers should be brought before the International Criminal Court. But of course they're not. And it'll never happen. Because the only state that really people rally around to hate is Israel. It's easy. You deflect. Now, while this week the United States vetoed yet again another resolution against Israel, at the same time, Stuart, to show you the depths of anti-Semitism, Jew hater Senator Bernie Sanders tried to stop any arms shipment to Israel, and 20 other senators supported that move, Stuart. I'm trying to understand here. Your ally is, you have no problem sending arms to Ukraine. You're not bringing Putin to court. You're not accusing him of any criminality. He just launched.
Yeah, actually, I misspoke.
Stuart,
I misspoke.
Stuart, let me finish this one. He launched missiles, mid-range, these experimental missiles into Ukraine, killing people. And there's nothing happening here. Please forgive me. What you just posted on screen means nothing, because I do not hear screaming from politicians. I do not hear screaming from the media. I do not hear don't see the protests on the streets. Nothing.
You do see protests on the street. Death to Israel. Death to Israel from the river to the sea.
So, Stuart, I know I went long on this, but I want our listeners and our viewers to understand the depths of what the media and the politicians have done. They've singled out only one state who is not guilty, who is not, is not responsible for all the deaths in Gaza, and is still being vilified from media to the UN, to the ICC. It matters not the truth, Stuart, when it comes to Jews in Israel.
I'm going to put this post up here. Crimes against humanity and international law cover these: extermination, enslavement, deportation and forcible transfer population, imprisonment, torture, sexual violence, persecution against an identifiable group.
Yep.
Hang on a second. Let me pull that off the screen.
But Stuart, you notice that what you're about to show people really doesn't matter, because Israel had to prove that women were raped and babies were burnt. Prove it. It took months for the United Nations to go, yeah, it happened. And yet they're still denying it. You still have high-level UN officials denying any guilt by Hamas. It's interesting, Stuart, that Hezbollah was firing rockets in Israel since October the 8th, and they're not guilty of anything. Hamas is not guilty of anything, but what you're putting on screen doesn't seem to matter.
Right. Well, I put this on because this is the final one. This is part of the Rome Statute. And I want to read it. Other humane acts of similar character intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or mental, physical health. Now, David, I don't know about you, but when you have bombs blowing up, 200 rockets coming at you, I mean, every day, 19,000 rockets fired over. That's okay, guys. Don't worry about it. That's insanity. And you keep doing the same thing over and over again, all you're doing is perpetrating more of the insanity. And David, I couldn't agree with you more. Not that we always agree, but I agree with you today. There's too much going on and too lack of things to address other problems. I misspoke. They did list Vladimir Putin as a war crime and put it up. I don't like misspeaking, and I don't mind being corrected, but I will tell you, I don't hear about it.
You know what, Stuart? I give the new Senate Majority Leader John Thune a lot of credit. He called on Chuck Schumer while he's still Majority Leader to put a bill to the floor to sanction the ICC for its arrest warrants. Apparently, the House already passed a bipartisan bill. And he called on Chuck Schumer to do the same thing. And let's see if this Jew hater could do something about it. Because frankly, Chuck Schumer hasn't exactly been on Israel's side. He's been more on his political side. And let's see if he does it before his tenure as majority leader is over. But the United States can clearly send this message yet again. And I know with the new president, with Elise Stefanik at the helm, similar to what Nikki Haley did, there will be some justice presented by the United States towards Israel. But unfortunately, numerically, this United States is being outnumbered by the number of haters and the amount of allies, because Russia, Iran are twisting the arms of so many countries to do its bidding
And it's South Africa who is going to pay the price. And it's time and time again that Israel has told South Africa that despite all the help Israel brought to them, helping them with water problems, helping them with conservation, with a whole bunch of things, to do this because Russia and Iran twisted their arms. And you know what, Stuart? Payback's a bitch. You know, as Israel continues to produce more and more technologies to help people, medicines, let's see the begging that occurs. Let's see, you know, there was an interesting, and I know I'm diverting a little bit, but there was an interesting Sunday morning piece on PTSD. And it was on Sunday morning on CBS, they talked about how Israel has really found ways to help people with PTSD. And it's incredible. There, you know, one of the questions, are you going to share this technology? And I'm thinking, what a dumb freaking question. What a question. Israel has been sharing its technology, but it's been spit on time and time again, from the Pope to the UN to a variety of political leaders to media around the world, that the facts do not matter. And when you continue to see these pro-Palestinian, so-called pro-Palestinian, they're not. These are anarchists destroying universities, as we've had here in Montreal this week, by the way, as you've seen bill after BDS bill, after all these things being done behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, none of that helps Palestinians. None of that is for Palestine. All of it is to destroy, as you said, the one tiny state in the Middle East.
On that note, David, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. It's a wrap. A huge thanks for lending us your ears, your eyes, spending some time, and possibly thinking about what we're really talking about and trying to show how the world has a strange lens on today. It's been a real pleasure. Your support means the world. Follow us, like us, subscribe to us on any of the verticals, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or on our own site. Every Monday, Wednesday, noon Eastern, David and I go down and dirty, heading towards the 4-year anniversary in less than another couple of months, David. Wow. So thank you again, David. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye to these friends and family?
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, as the ICC continues to rear its ugly head, the one thing we need to remember are there are still 101 hostages being held in Gaza. The plight of these poor people, from babies, the Bibas child who has spent more time in captivity than in freedom, is still in Gaza somewhere, all the way to seniors, and their plight is ignored by the world. The UN hasn't called once for their release. That's to show you the depths of disgust that we're dealing with. Ladies and gentlemen, please do in your prayers this week.